She was 11 years old, covered in rust dust, and every adult in the county thought she'd lost her mind. By the end of that summer, she'd have the healthiest soybean field for 40 miles, grown in the middle of the worst drought anyone could remember. This is how she did it. In Briar Hollow, a small farming community in eastern Tennessee, everybody knows everybody's business. And in the summer of 2023, they all had the same opinion about 11-year-old Ivy Sutter. She was collecting garbage, old irrigation pipe, cracked fittings, bent aluminum tubing that farmers across the valley had ripped out of dying systems and left to rust for years. The kind of scrap nobody looks at twice. Ivy started going door to door, asking if she could take it off their hands. Most of the neighbors said yes, not because they believed in whatever she was planning, but because it cost them nothing and it kept a kid occupied for an afternoon. Her father assumed it was a school project. Her mother assumed it was a phase. Her grandfather, who'd farmed the land next door for 40 years, just shook his head and said, "That girl's always looking at things a little too long." What nobody realized was that Ivy had spent her spring break reading about something called gravity-fed drip irrigation, a system that moves water directly to plant roots using nothing but elevation and slope. No pumps, no electricity, no expensive parts, just physics and the right pipe, placed the right way. She'd found the idea buried in an old extension service pamphlet her grandfather kept in a drawer, and then kept going, learning about pipe diameter, flow rate, and exactly how much drop a line needs to keep water moving on its own. She wasn't collecting junk, she was collecting parts. Over 5 weeks, she cleaned, sorted, and tested every scrap of pipe by hand, filling sections with water in a bucket to check for leaks, matching diameters, mapping the slope of her family's back acre with a level and a length of string. It turned out to be a gentle 4-foot drop across 250 feet, exactly the kind of ground gravity-fed systems are built for. Her father, mostly curious by that point, helped her dig the trench for the main line. Her grandfather, mostly amused, let her tap into an old 1,200-gallon rainwater tank that had sat unused behind his barn for a decade. Nobody else in Briar Hollow was doing anything close to this. Because 2023 was already the driest summer in a generation, rainfall that season had dropped nearly 40% below average. Wells were running low across the valley. Sprinkler systems were burning through what little water farmers had left, faster than tanks could refill. Grown men who had farmed this land their whole lives were watching entire fields turn brittle and yellow. And in the middle of that same drought, on the same cracked soil, under the same punishing sky, Ivy's test plot stayed green. Her system, built entirely out of other people's trash, was delivering water in slow, steady amounts directly to the roots, with almost nothing lost to evaporation or runoff. While the rest of the valley fought a losing battle against the heat, Ivy's salvaged pipes just kept working, quietly, exactly as she'd designed them. By late July, nobody was laughing anymore. Her grandfather brought 2 neighboring farmers out to see it for themselves. Then the county extension agent showed up, walked her rows, checked her water logs twice, and asked her to explain, in detail, how she'd calculated her pipe slope. She handed him her notebook. He read it for a long time without saying anything. "You built this out of scrap," he finally said. "It was just sitting there," Ivy told him. Nobody was using it. When the yield numbers came in that fall, Ivy's small test plot had outperformed every comparable acreage in Briar Hollow. Not because she had better soil, better luck, or more money. She had less of everything. She'd simply used what she had more carefully than anyone else had bothered to. When the yield numbers came in that fall, Ivy's small test plot had outperformed every comparable acreage in Briar Hollow, not because she had better soil, better luck, or more money. She had less of everything. She'd simply used what she had more carefully than anyone else had bothered to. Here's what an 11-year-old girl in Briar Hollow, Tennessee proved that summer. The most powerful ideas in farming don't always come from new equipment or bigger budgets. Sometimes they come from paying attention to what everyone else has already thrown away and asking one simple question: does this still have a job to do? Ivy didn't wait for permission. She just needed pipe, a slope, and the patience to test it until it worked. This is the Rural File. These are the stories that happen far from the news cameras, in dry summer fields, in kitchen table research, in the quiet stubbornness of people nobody expected to succeed. If Ivy's story stayed with you, if you believe the smallest ideas sometimes grow the biggest crops, hit subscribe. If Ivy's story taught you something today, about resourcefulness, about paying attention, about what's possible with what you already have, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you've ever built something out of what everyone else threw away, tell us about it in the comments. Let's see how far this story reaches.